Good morning and peace be upon you this beautiful day, wherever you're tuning in from. My name is Qasim Rashid, and this is the Qasim Rashid Show here on Sirius XM Urban View Channel 126, the most awesome show in the multiverse. If you're listening on Substack, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'm proud to announce that we have just surpassed 100,000 downloads on the Substack podcast for this show. And it's because you guys listen on that platform as well as Sirius XM. So keep crushing it because you guys are amazing. And you got to understand, I've been doing this show for a long time. I've got an amazing team around me. Alexa, our producer, obviously grateful to Karen Hunter for making this platform possible. To hit a milestone like 100,000 downloads is a big deal. And it's a reflection of the fact that you guys care, you listen, and you share this. So much love to you. My deepest gratitude to you. This is amazing. This is not the kind of stuff you think about when you start out, but you see it happen and you see the data, and it feels good. It feels good to know that people care about human rights, about economic, social, climate justice, gender justice, about my dad jokes. It feels good that people care about that. Speaking of which, I just learned that my cat's doctor is a retired racist soldier. Yeah, he's a veterinarian. You get it? Veterinarian. All right, never mind. Look, we've got a great show lined up today. Dr. Babur Lateef is here. Dr. Babur Lateef is an old friend. More importantly, he is running for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia. This is an important seat to win because right now the Lieutenant Governor spot is and the governor spot is held by right-wing Trump MAGAs, and we have a chance to flip this seat blue and get it back into Democrat hands. I think you'll see, and I want you to hear from him directly. Election day is coming up, by the way, on June 17th. So it is right around the corner. So if you are in Virginia or you know anybody in Virginia, you need to, one, go vote, and two, you need to drag all the people you know, kicking and screaming if you have to, hopefully not, and get them to come vote as well. Because I think you'll see in my conversation with Dr. Babur Lateef that he's the guy. I mean, this is the guy you want in this powerful position. He is, elected chair of the Prince William County School Board. He is a physician, a public health expert, has worked in the space for decades, has fought back against Trump and won against Trump repeatedly. He's the guy we want. He's not just a doer, he's a fighter. And in a sea of politicians who just kind of sit there and play it safe, this guy takes the fight to the fascists and he wins. And this is the person that we want protecting our communities, our children, and our future. So we'll have him on in just a second. And then afterwards, I'm going to do a deeper dive into just what the hell is happening with Donald Trump deploying the U.S. military. We're going to answer some questions that I've received on what he can do legally with the National Guard, with the U.S. Marines, what's happening with these ICE raids, and provide some context on how you can be a little bit safer. Because at the end of the day, what we're seeing is the first time since 1963 that a sitting president has deployed the National Guard or the U.S. military on Americans. And in this case, doing so against the will or the recommendation of the governor of that state. And there's a video going around of Trump in 2020 saying that it's illegal for him to deploy the National Guard without the governor's permission. And now obviously he just did that on his own without any kind of semblance of self-awareness. Laws and facts don't actually matter to this person as they typically don't to authoritarians. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Uniform Code of Military Justice, the UCMJ, Articles 1994, which prohibit the execution of unlawful orders, and what that means here as well. Spoiler alert, saying that I was just following orders is not a valid defense. It was not a valid defense during Nuremberg, and it is not a valid defense today here either. So we'll pause for a moment, and when we come back, we'll have Dr. Babur Lateef on, and then at the end of the show, we'll talk about just what is happening with these military deployments. You're listening to the Qasim Rashid Show here on Sirius XM Urban View Channel 126, the most awesome show in the multiverse. When we come back from this very short break, we'll have Dr. Babur Lateef, who is running for Lieutenant Governor, Democrat in Virginia. You won't want to miss this interview. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back. You're listening to the Qasim Rashid Show here on Sirius XM Urban View Channel 126, the most awesome show in the multiverse. If you're listening on Substack, make sure you hit that subscribe button so we can continue to create this content. I'm extraordinarily excited about our guest today. Dr. Babur Lateef is an old friend of mine. I've known him for nearly a decade. He has done brilliant work in Prince William County around the school system. He's chair of the school board. And now he's running for lieutenant governor of Virginia. No small feat, but he is up to the challenge. It's a crowded field, and he's run a brilliant campaign. And I'm having him on, one, because I want him to win, but two, because when I talk on the show often about electing the people who are going to actually serve the people, electing people who actually care about our democracy and who have lived those values, and people you should donate to and vote for. Dr. Babur Lateef is the kind of person I'm talking about. Babur, thank you so much for being with us today.
Qasim, thank you for having me here. It's an honor to be in the best show in the multiverse. That is terrific.
I know you're a Marvel fan, so I figured you'd
Yeah,
get that reference
there
as
you
well.
go.
And you know, I think one of the things that I've always been impressed with you about Barbara, I don't know if you know this, but I'll share this on air. When I was first running for office for the first time nearly 10 years ago, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Sam Rasul, it might have been somebody, I can't remember who it was actually, who said, you need to call Barbara first and just chat with him. And you had no idea who I was. We had never met before. Some random number popped up, and you picked up, and I said who I was, and you're like, "Oh, I'm working right now, but I'm gonna call you at this time, and we'll chat then." And you called back, and we spoke for an hour, and you gave this free, amazing advice to somebody who had no idea what the hell he was doing, without asking for anything in return. That right there told me that you're the kind of person that I need to know, that I need to respect. And I was glad that you were in an elected position then. Before we kind of dive into policies and
Yeah,
all that kind of stuff,
yeah.
what should people know about you? You know,
Well,
what
well, yeah.
superhero origin story? What kind of drives you?
Well, first, just on your comment right there, like you chose to run in a district that was super red, trying to go blue, and that was the experience I had. My first election was in a very Republican stronghold, and I got shellacked in 2011. But I
Yeah,
stayed in the game and worked hard, and the county is now blue. You were working in that sort of that frontier area
yeah,
of trying to go from red to blue, and anyone who does that, I applaud their courage, their commitment, and it is not easy. It really isn't easy. And you did it with sort of a people powered campaign where you didn't pay a political consultant or a pollster to tell you what to think. You engaged with voters on a day-to-day basis, and it's that what I appreciate about anyone who's going to run for office. And so what should voters know about me in the same context, Qasim, as you've been a good role model for many of us when it comes to engaging with voters. I think as Democrats, many say, how did we lose? How are we losing? How do we lose the presidency? I think many times in these campaigns, and we're spending money on pollsters and political consultants who tell us what we should be talking about, and we're not doing enough of engaging with the regular voter. And I spent my life engaging with voters. That's what I do. I see
yeah.
40, 50 patients a day, hundreds of patients a week. They're from every demographic group, right? Republican and Democrat, and rich and poor, English speaking, non-English speaking, and they tell me what's on their minds, and I bring those stories and challenges and worries to, whether it's the school board or whether it's my work at the University of Virginia or leading the hospital system. I bring those things to life and give real voice to them. And so that's what I think Democrats need to do more of, and I think that's what our campaign has done.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's really that disconnect is what's frustrating a lot of people. And you know, you're obviously a husband, you're a father of four, you're chair of the Prince William County School Board, and you're also chair of the University of Virginia Health System Board.
Yeah.
Right now, we're facing unprecedented attacks on our universities from the federal government. There were reports in LA this week of plainclothes DHS and ICE officers trying to get into elementary schools to literally abduct children. What's your vision as lieutenant governor to make sure that our children are protected, that due process of law is protected, and that people feel that their elected officials are out for their best interest, not in trying to trample our basic constitutional rights?
Yeah. You hear a lot of politicians, especially my opponents running, talking about how they're going to fight Trump. I'm actually undefeated against Trump. I've been doing this since 2018 when I got elected on the school board and he was president, and through the pandemic, and now, as you point out, the ICE raids. He lifted the sanctuary status on schools, hospitals, and churches, healthcare
Right.
facilities, and areas that I have to oversee, right? Hospitals and schools. And we have lawyered up. We are ready. We've trained our front desk folks, our principals, on what to do if ICE comes in, and we will make sure we follow the letter of the law, but we will defend and protect all our vulnerable populations. And we are doing that, and I'm proud of that work that we're doing. And so I do worry. I worry about the attacks on free speech at our higher ed and our K
Yeah.
through 12, the attacks on our curriculum, and what they want us to teach. And we've pushed back. We haven't changed the curriculum. We haven't cut out a DEI program, and we're protecting our most vulnerable populations against the attacks from this administration. It's costing me money that should go into teaching math and science, but
Yeah.
those are the worries I have, and that's what we're up.
That's amazing. I mean, because we're seeing companies like Target cut their DEI programs, capitulate. And I was talking about this on my show last week. Target's lost $12 billion in this first half of the year because people are sick and tired of the bigotry and the discrimination. And to see you lean into this,
Yeah.
it's powerful. It's encouraging. I mean, as we see a country that is increasingly diverse and representative, it's important to have leaders who recognize that. Somebody said to me once that diversity and representation is not a destination; it's a starting point. It's for the sake of reality, and it's exciting to see you do that. And your wife also, to my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but she's a federal worker.
Yeah.
How are you guys managing these attacks on federal workers right now?
So she's a research scientist at the National Institutes of Health. She's a pediatric neurologist, and her expertise is in trying to help kids with migraines. That's what her work is, and she lives with the fear and anxiety of. She's already lost a number of people in the lab for really unreasonable reasons, unjust reasons. There was no logic to why they fired these folks. In Virginia alone, we've already lost the most jobs since the new president started, of all federal
Wow.
workers. And so look, and what people should really be, what they're worried about is when the president's firing these people, they're firing based on performance reasons. If you lose a job based on performance reasons, you're not allowed to collect unemployment in Virginia. He's cutting
Jeez.
Medicaid in this budget, so now they're not going to have health insurance. And he's cut already my K through 12 and community college and college workforce training programs and career switching opportunities and teacher pipeline programs. He cut the grants already. So now you're going to torture these people who lost a job and make sure their next 6 to 12 months is going to be as intolerable and as insufferable as possible. So it is not just cruel. I mean, it's beyond cruel. And that's what our federal workforce is facing. And those, by the way, who support the federal workforce, contractors in
Yes.
Virginia, and then the people who support the contractors, it all, hill.
Yeah, we're speaking with Dr. Babur Lateef, who's running for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia. Election day is right around the corner on June 17th. Early voting has already begun. So make sure you go out and find your polling location. I want to stay on healthcare for just a minute, Babur,
Yeah.
because we are seeing an unprecedented attack on our basic healthcare systems. We're seeing the highest rates of measles in 30 years. Two infants just died from whooping cough, all due to a lack of vaccinations. The deregulation of food health. We're seeing massive recalls of eggs due to salmonella poisoning. And the list kind of goes on and on. And I think just last week RFK fired people who were supposed to advise on vaccine usage as well. This is horrifying and frightening. So to me, it makes sense that I'd want to elect someone to a lieutenant governor who is a physician,
Yeah.
and not that your wife is going to be an elected official, but who has a spouse who is also a public health expert and a physician. What's the plan to make sure Virginia is protected against these attacks on our basic health from the federal government?
Yeah, I mean, we've never seen something like this, the level of incompetence that's at the national level in regarding preparation for emergencies, whether it's health emergencies or natural disasters. We are seeing this, and you're reading about it in the news every day. So in Virginia, even during the pandemic, Trump was president when the pandemic started, and I was
Right.
school chair at that time. And his level of incompetence and sort of inability to sort of create a national strategy to deal with it made local school divisions like mine, where I'm the second largest school division in the state, 32nd in the nation, by the way, 90,000 kids,
Yeah.
17,000 employees, one of the largest employers in the state of Virginia. I had to come up with our mitigation strategies on our own without real support from the federal government. At the state level, we were lucky to have a governor who was a pediatric neurologist as well. He was a physician. So he and I worked very closely. And I can tell you that in the fall of 2020, we did open schools for our special ed students and allowed them in person, but we mitigated and we did it in a way there were no outbreaks of disease, and it was tough. We asked everyone to work hard to do that, and but we did it in a thoughtful, methodical, safe way. And it's that expertise that I would bring, to the state of Virginia, that I would bring when it comes to dealing with emergencies. You need someone who's seasoned and has done this in a crisis, and I've done this over and over again.
Yeah, and I think that's what's super impressive and important here. I think you're the only person walking into this race who has this experience in healthcare, this level of, I mean, you've been a physician for now, what, 25, 30 years? I mean, you know
Yeah.
this better than anyone out there. You've seen the good, the bad, and right now the ugly. And from a basic healthcare and health safety standpoint, it gives me comfort to know someone of your caliber would be in that lieutenant governor. See, let's shift gears a little bit to talk about economic justice, because I think one of the areas where Democrats continue to fail at is sending the message that our economic policies are not only good, but they're infinitely better than what the Republicans put forth. You've done the work in this space. You've been extraordinarily effective in this space. Everything from the no car tax to combating this absurd casino. I think you're the only one in the race opposing this casino. Before we kind of get into specifics, talk to me about your broader economic policy to make sure people are going to have a fair shake at the basic necessities of life.
Yeah. So look, we're focused on affordable housing, nationwide and statewide, especially. So let's talk about this. The average age for buying a first home in America, first time down payment, is now 38 years old nationwide.
Wow. Wow.
It is 44 in Northern Virginia. 44. When you and I bought our homes, we might have been in our early 30s. Our parents would have been in their 20s. It wasn't
Right.
unusual in America in the 50s, 60s, 70s that you're buying, you had enough money for a down payment when you were 27, 28.
That's right.
We are not even close. So is America better off? No way. Our kids have a better, starting point than we did? No way. And so that's why our investments in education, we dramatically improved scholarship dollars to students from 20 million a year across my high schools 5 years ago to 157 million last year. It's why we're investing in opportunities, career tech ed programs, and why at the university level, we're making sure we have majors that are, marketable, and students are getting out there ready to go. So, but affordable housing is critical. Not only we talking about the folks starting out, how about our parents? The number one place our parents want to retire is, everyone thinks, oh, it's Florida, Arizona. It's actually not. When you survey retirees, the number one place they want to retire is in their home, where they
Yeah.
live, in their
Right.
community, next to
Right.
their churches, next to their social networks. They're getting priced out of staying in their own homes, near their own
Yeah.
kids. And so I'm worried about them. And then for all of us, in that sort of sandwich generation, any catastrophe that befalls either one of them, the kids don't get the right job, they get laid off, the parents have a stroke, or that impacts all three generations.
It
And,
does. Yeah.
and that's what Qasim, when I talk to people, that's what they're afraid of. That's where they're worried about.
I remember having a conversation with the executive director of the Hope House in, I think they're in Stafford County, and she said something that kind of shook me to the core. This is an old conversation, maybe 7, 8 years ago, but she said to me that 85% of the people who are currently homeless and staying in this homeless shelter have at least a bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
And I was kind of,
Wow.
and I said, that doesn't make any sense. I've always been told that education is the passport to economic prosperity. And she said, well, it is, but we live in a country that doesn't guarantee healthcare. We live in a country where housing is unaffordable. She goes, the vast majority of us are two simultaneous catastrophes away from being homeless. You lose your job and then you get cancer. Your insurance lapses and your house burns down. I mean, we're just two, let alone one, but at the most, most of us can absorb one catastrophe barely, but two is devastating. And so I think your focus on affordable housing is absolutely critical here. And let's talk about this casino aspect, because I know this has been a main mantra of your campaign. Let me play devil's advocate. What's wrong with
Yeah.
the casino? Doesn't it create jobs? Isn't it better for the economy? Why are you so anti-casino, Babur?
Yeah, well, so there's no research anywhere in the country or the world that indicates the middle class was built on the backs of casinos and gambling. It just doesn't exist. You know,
Yeah.
not only are my opponents for a casino in Northern Virginia, which is one sort of entity, and the people here don't want it. You know, it's highly unpopular. But let's talk about the what's even worse that they're for is predatory gaming. I don't know if you're familiar with slot machines in 7-Elevens and video poker machines in gas stations and 7-Elevens. They want to bring that to Virginia. That is predatory gaming and gambling, going against the most vulnerable population, encouraging students and young people to, start gambling. And so as a school board chairman, I've dealt with the fentanyl overdose and addiction and drug addiction. I'm dealing with vaping addiction. I'm dealing with screen addiction with our kids in
Mm.
schools. Now you want me to deal with gambling addictions. I mean, folks, we are spending our money on, and we're creating problems that we now have to spend money to solve. And it doesn't make any sense. My opponents have taken over $1 million over the course of the campaigns from gambling interests and predatory gaming interests.
Wow.
And so the state runs I've been school board chair for 7 years, $1 to $2 billion surpluses every year in Richmond that are not coming back to create those social safety nets we just talked about. Protecting Medicaid, making sure we have unemployment insurance for everyone, making sure that we have affordable housing programs, making sure we're funding our schools. Those dollars aren't coming back. So when you're talking about generating revenues, which is really small in comparison to the broad budget of the state from gaming and gambling, we can do much better. And Americans are far more creative, much more smarter to come up with better ways to resource our government than through programs that create more problems than they
Yeah.
help.
Yeah. And to add on to your point about not a single study ever demonstrating that it benefits the middle class, there have been numerous studies, because I've looked into this in detail
Yeah.
myself, that demonstrate a decimation of the working class of the community in which the casino is built. Folks need to understand, rich people don't gamble their lives away at casinos hoping to get rich. It's working class folks who have this belief that I just, just this one time I got to hit it big and I'm set, and it destroys families. It devastates families, and the idea, it's quite immoral to me, if you ask me, that we would try to solve any budgetary problems by taxing effectively low income people. It's moral, and it's backwards, and it's asinine, and to me it's disqualifying to be in a position of power and authority. I know you already mentioned, working on opioids and fentanyl overdoses. This is an issue that I think a lot of folks care about, especially as we see these major pharmaceutical companies get a slap on the wrist, not having to face any kind of accountability. You've worked on this for nearly a decade now in your leadership role as chair of school board. Talk a bit more about this, because I don't know anyone who hasn't directly been impacted by the opioid crisis in the United States. What kind of work have you done, and what would you want to see happen Commonwealth-wide to ensure we're continuing to combat this, especially the rural parts of our communities?
Yeah. Qasim, I mean, I think when you look at the root cause analysis of why folks decide to choose to take drugs, why they become addicted, I mean, that's the work that has to be done. And, it's a mix of sort of access to these drugs, the free flow of them, the ease, the entry level drugs or entry level sort of opportunities for them to get into it. But it's also our mental health situation. So in
Yeah.
Prince William, we in our school division, we offer a mental telehealth service for all students K through 12 that you can access online with the consent of your parents, and you can get mental health services started. And then not only do they start it online with behavior specialists or psychiatrists, psychologists, they help you access those resources in your region so that you can continue that work. One of the biggest problems we have nationwide is a shortage of mental health workers. I mean, even if you have the Cadillac version of insurance, you can't get an appointment with a child psychiatrist for your kid. It is impossible. There are no addiction
Yeah.
services. There are no beds. I mean, our kids who show up with an overdose in the ER, we hold them in the emergency room for 24 hours, and then we have no bed to send them anywhere. There's no addiction service in the local hospital. And then the addiction service, if there are long-term care facilities, there's like 30 beds for all our entire region that has almost like, 3 million people. And we have like 45 beds for kids for addiction services. It's
Yeah.
just, we're not resourcing our communities to deal with the challenges. And so they continue and perpetuate and build on each other. And we are not solving the problem.
Yeah, it's just not sustainable, and it's getting to
Yes.
a breaking point for sure. Barbara, I think one thing, and if you're just tuning in, we're speaking with Dr. Babur Lateef. chair of the Prince William County School Board, and he's running for lieutenant governor of Virginia. Barbara, if I had never met you before and I just listened to this conversation, I think the two emerging themes that I would be most struck by are your focus on economic justice for everyone, making sure everybody just has a fair shake at human dignity, and your focus on ensuring our children are protected, both from a physical standpoint, from a mental health standpoint, and given the economic opportunity. There's all that data that shows that unfortunately, so much of the success that a person may achieve in this country depends on the zip code that they're born in. And to see the work you've done in Prince William County to change that, to make sure that everybody has equal access to justice, is an extraordinarily powerful thing. And I think part of that also speaks to the longevity of our environment and ensuring that we're living in a world where our children, when they inherit it from us, it's not polluted and it's not destroyed. One of the things I've been really impressed by is your focus on the electric bus initiative. Talk a little bit about that, because I don't think people realize the studies that correlate cancer rates in children with these carcinogenic diesel buses and the impact they have. And so what you're doing here is, and keep me honest, is not just getting us to a sustainable place from a transportation standpoint, but you're again protecting the healthcare of our children.
Yeah. No, being the chair of such a large school division, you have the ability to really lead and everybody's watching. We wrote a electric bus pilot initiative with the major electric utility company in the state, and who they supplied electric buses to different school divisions for us to try this out and to help us get started with this work. It is critical work. Energy and sustainability, safety, all tied together. And we're building just only the fourth elementary school in the state that's fully net zero, solar, geothermal.
Amazing. Amazing.
We are clean. Every new project has to be considered for solar and geothermal from here on out. We've made all our buildings LEED certified and platinum, all of that, energy efficient. And we've also added it to our curriculum, right? So we want to make sure our students understand that this is a critical aspect of what we have to do for our future. And so we want you to go into these fields to help us solve the problems. Look, everybody wants their phones to work fast and their AI, but that's increased 25% increase in energy needs across the country.
Mm.
And so now we're going back to thinking, well, we're so far behind on our energy. We just alone, the energy needs for the country in the last 4 years has increased more than it had in the prior 20 years or 30 years
Wow.
because of the AI. And so the pressure on our electric grid is incredible. And so, public officials are, being forced to relook at, what are we going to do with, to do this? Do we go back to fossil fuels? And so we have to have that generation of leaders and smart scientists who are going to figure out how we're going to solve these problems.
You've also talked extensively about the no car tax,
Yeah.
and it's kind of taken on a life of its own in Virginia. And I'm seeing people who've never talked about this suddenly kind of make this their mantra. Talk about the car tax. Why is it such a big deal? And
Yeah.
why are you distinguished from your opponents in this space?
Yeah. Historically, you'll read the reports that, politicians in Virginia want to get rid of the most hated tax we have, which is a car tax. And it's a really high tax for everyone on their vehicles every single year. Um, Most politicians talk about it. I'm the only one in the state. So our school division, 57% of the county's tax revenues come to the schools. So, what I say about taxes and funding is really important countywide. We have invested more dollars in schools, and we lowered our car tax locally. We're the only county that's done that. We're the lowest in the region. So I've already done that. And so when your state is running $1 to $2 billion surpluses, and they refuse to spend that on taking care of our citizens with better social safety net, social services, healthcare, education, well, then let's cut that tax from the state and then put those monies back in our local communities, where we will take care of the needs we have and make sure that we fully fund our schools, make sure we give opportunities to our people. And so that's what I'm running on. And, it's interesting. The governor, who's a presumed nominee, Abigail Spanberger, came out and joined me on the no car tax push. She also announced an affordable housing initiative very similar to the work we've listed on our website for the last couple of months, called Home by 30 program, which is, real commitment, and going back to, we've solved things. We put together a program in Charlottesville, Virginia, where housing is really tight. where we did a request for proposal using university or state asset owned lands to a developer, and we had 3 properties where they're going to put 500 rental units on each of them for $1 per year lease for 99 years, but they have to rent the units at 25% below market value. That is
Yeah.
a great way to get young people into houses that they can afford, and that 25% they save can go towards the savings for their down payment on their home sooner.
Yeah.
These are the initiatives, the programs we have to be thinking about.
Well, I always get impressed when I see somebody run on principles so effectively that people running for higher offices say, hey, that's a pretty good idea. Let me go ahead and adopt that
Yeah.
myself. And I think that's what we're seeing here as well. I mean, I think that's an example of leadership. If you're just tuning in, we're speaking with Dr. Babur Lateef, running for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, brings a rich history of public service, both in elected office and in the academic setting and public health to our country, to our Commonwealth of Virginia. Election day is right around the corner on June 17th. So make sure you go. In our final couple minutes, I think I have 2 questions. One kind of really esoteric and one just kind of fun. I know you're a big
Yeah.
Marvel junkie as well, but broadly speaking, we're at a very difficult time in our country. One of the most difficult, I think, in modern memory. Some folks are disillusioned from the voting process, think their vote doesn't matter. What's your message to them? Because I think the worst thing that can happen is if we have a low turnout election. We need people to vote. What commitment can you make to folks to make them feel that their voice is going to be heard if and when they come out and vote for you for lieutenant governor?
Yeah. I think, being on a school board is the most romantic version of representative democracy we have in our system. People can come on one evening and speak to the school board at citizen comment time. They can email us, they can call us directly. We can change a policy that evening, and that impact happens to the students in the community the next day. There is no more representative version of our democracy than that. And I think our success at being able to do that for our community, improving student performance across all demographics. We gave teachers a 61% raise in the last 7 years, the largest in the nation in a single time period. I've delivered on results. There's folks who talk about, resisting, and then there's folks that I would tell you is I resist, sort of the Donald Trumps, but I also deliver results. And so if you don't get out and vote, you're not going to be able to put in the kinds of folks who are going to deliver results. And then you'll see someone like a Donald Trump who's there dismantling the system piece by piece, whether it's his attack on free speech or his attack on federal workers or his attack on the things that keep our country safe, like vaccines or our national security. That level of incompetence is very dangerous, and I think it's really important for voters. A lot of folks said, I vote for Trump, but they didn't realize what he was going to do, and now that's impacting their lives in ways they never imagined could happen. And so, it is really critical to get out there and vote for elected, folks who have delivered competent, capable leadership on the issues that you may not even notice, the ones that are not even newsworthy, but they
Yeah.
make a real difference in your life.
Absolutely. And I think you just need to look at your track record, Babur. I mean, folks who are wondering what you're going to bring, I don't think they have to wonder. I think they can see your track record and see what you've done, right? This is not what would Babur do, it's do what Babur did. I mean, he's done the work, right?
Yeah,
And I think that's what's most
that's right.
impressive about your track record here as well. All right, well, last couple of minutes. The most important question. If you were a Marvel superhero, who would
Oh,
you be and why?
wow. So a Black Panther, I mean, man, you get to live in Wakanda. You get to have probably the coolest suit and some of the best technology to play around with, and you're motivated by an extremely moral sort of framework that
Yeah.
that he gets to represent. So wow, what a great place! I mean, you're talking about maybe a utopia. Then look at Wakanda.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
they got climate justice, they got economic justice, no crime, no poverty. It's a
yeah,
brilliant
yeah.
place really to live in. No, I love it. I love the aspiration. Babur, talk to us about where folks can find out where their polling location is and how they can get involved in your campaign and make sure we win this thing on election day.
Yeah, so voteva.org, you can go to there and find information about where your polling locations are. Early voting is still going on right now on a daily basis. Our last Saturday of early voting is this Saturday. The election's Tuesday. If you have a mail-in ballot that you're sitting on, you can still send that in, and that will be counted even until 7 o'clock on election day if that gets postmarked by then. So we're really encouraging them. We've had an activist strategy to get the vote out. I believe, that if you get out there and vote, we can make a real difference. And I think electing me is putting someone in who delivers real results.
And we'll include these links when we post the show. Dr. Babur Lateef, I think you are what I think about when I think about where this country needs to go in electing people who truly care for working people. You're a product of the public school system yourself. Your kids are in public school, and you've developed a career focused on working folks. Thanks for being here today. Good luck on election day, and we hope to have you back on when you win this election.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's been an honor and a privilege to join you, an old time friend and someone who's really fought the fight and continues to do so no matter what happens.
Thank you. Thank you, man. I appreciate that a lot. My friends, Dr. Babur Lateef running for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia. Election day is June 17th. Polls are open until 7 p.m. Make sure you go out and vote. And if you're in Virginia, take 3 friends with you. You have 3 friends. I swear to God, you have 3 friends. Take them with you. And if you're not in Virginia, call people in Virginia and make sure they vote for Dr. Babur Lateef for Lieutenant Governor. We need to elect this kind of a principled leader to our lieutenant governor seat. You're listening to the Qasim Rashid Show here on Sirius XM Urban View Channel 126, the most awesome show in the multiverse. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back. You're listening to the Qasim Rashid Show here on Sirius XM Urban View Channel 126, the most awesome show in the multiverse. That was Dr. Babur Lateef, just an amazing all-around human being, a phenomenal public servant, and somebody that we need to elect to the seat of lieutenant governor in Virginia. Go to iwillvote.com to find out where your polling location is. And if you are not in Virginia and listening to this, make sure you send this to everyone you know in Virginia and tell them June 17th is election day in Virginia, and you need to go out and vote for Dr. Babur Lateef. Yes, this is a proud endorsement of him because he's the kind of person, the fighter that we need in this important seat. And especially at a time when we have a federal government that is quickly descending into authoritarianism, we need to make sure our state elected officials are fighters and are willing to fight back and able to fight back and have a proven record of fighting back and winning against Donald Trump. That is something that Dr. Babur Lateef brings to the table. I cannot say enough good things about him. iwillvote.com, vote for Dr. Babur Lateef. Now, shifting gears to the final segment of the show in these last 10, 12 minutes that we have, in yet another escalation of authoritarianism, Donald Trump has now begun deploying the National Guard and the U.S. Marines to what he calls settling unrest in Los Angeles, what he describes as violent protests. But here's the truth, folks. The unrest he's citing is nothing more than ordinary people peacefully protesting ICE raids. And this is not conjecture. And I'm going to provide the receipts because this is a fact admitted to by the LAPD and the U.S. Department of Justice. And unless we organize nationally across the political spectrum, including active duty military members, we are inviting a total dismantling of our republic. That's how serious this is. We need to recognize it as that serious as well. And so let me tell you this. When you see these images of citizens allegedly creating violence, remember that anything they're doing is a response, is a reaction to ICE violating the U.S. Constitution. And this, again, is not my opinion. They are telling us this. In a March memo of this year, the Department of Justice wrote a letter, Pam Bondi wrote to ICE, instructing ICE officers to proceed with raids even when it is impracticable to obtain a signed warrant, including violating the sanctity of people's homes without a warrant. Their own words, I'm going to read this, quote, "Given the dynamic nature of enforcement operations, officers in the field are authorized to apprehend aliens upon a reasonable belief that the alien meets all 4 requirements to be validated as an alien enemy. This authority includes entering an alien enemy's residence to make an AEA apprehension where circumstances render it impracticable to first obtain a signed notice and warrant of apprehension and removal," end quote. Just let me break that down for a second. They're saying, given how difficult it is to get a warrant, if you feel like this guy's illegal, go ahead and arrest him anyway. I'm sorry, But the last time I read the US Constitution, it does not say if you feel like someone is breaking the law, you can arrest them. No, it says you still have to go and get a judicial warrant to take someone's rights away. That's due process of law. And it says explicitly no person shall be deprived life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. No person, not no citizen, not no oligarch, no person, no human being. That's the qualification. So the idea that they have a belief, oh, well, I believe this person is doing something wrong. Yeah, like that's never been fascist before. It's absurd. This is unconstitutional. The Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution explicitly protects against unlawful searches and seizures. ICE raids without a judicial warrant are illegal. And deploying the US military to enforce those illegal raids is not just unconstitutional, it is tyrannical. And yet Trump is doing both anyway. And so here's what every member of the armed forces needs to know. And I say this as a human rights lawyer, as a citizen of this republic, as someone who has taken a sworn oath under penalty of arrest and imprisonment. I have taken a sworn oath to uphold the US Constitution. My message to armed service members is that you also have taken an oath to uphold the US Constitution. You have not taken an oath to a man. In Article 90 and Article 94 of the UCMJ, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, prohibit the execution of unlawful orders. So if anyone in the chain of command tries to gaslight you into storming civilian neighborhoods and claim that this is legal, remember, it is illegal. And remember, saying that I was just following orders is not a valid defense. It was not a valid defense at Nuremberg, and it won't be a valid defense here either. And you guys, this is critical because Trump is promising to escalate military deployment on Americans. Last November, by the way, I wrote that President Biden must act to secure the civil service from political interference by updating and strengthening the Posse Comitatus Act, the PCA. Most people have never heard of this piece of legislation because it has not been relevant in 150 years beyond combating drug trafficking. But sadly, it will be critical to prevent Trumpian fascism from expanding use of the PCA. I wrote way back when, last November, 6 months ago, that Biden needs to strengthen it because the DOJ even at that time explained that the PCA of 1878, which removed the military from regular civil law enforcement, was enacted in response to the abuses resulting from the extensive use of the army and civil law enforcement during the Civil War and the Reconstruction. So basically what was happening, you had the Civil War, you had Reconstruction, and the army was still out and about. And this bill was passed to say, okay, enough is enough. Civil War is over. Reconstruction's in full swing. Can we stop now with having the army be in charge of local law enforcement? We need to stop this. And so this bill was passed. And what Trump is doing is claiming we're in some kind of state of war to reenact this bill and bring the military to be local law enforcement. It's absurd. I called for Biden, and that wasn't just me. A lot of other human rights lawyers called for Biden to pass these additional restrictions. He didn't, which is unfortunate, which is terrible. But this is part of the problem of why not having fighters in the executive branch is problematic, to say the least. So now, what do? Now, while we recognize the situation that we're in and we act accordingly, Hegseth has continued to threaten to deploy Marines. He has deployed 700 Marines to Los Angeles. And so the first thing is just communicate to every member of the armed forces that if you want to know if what you're being asked to do is legal, here's a tip. If it would have been considered a war crime in Iraq and Afghanistan and Vietnam and World War II, it's a war crime here. And supporting those who order you to violate our Constitution, including if that person is Donald Trump, that's not loyalty. It's indefensible. It's contrary to your oath. And if you are unsure on how to proceed, then please, please, I'm begging you, utilize the resources at your disposal. You can visit the GI Rights hotline or call 1-877-477-4487. Again, that number is 1-877-447-4487. This is the GI Rights hotline. You can call for free and confidential guidance on whether what you're being asked to do is illegal. You can get counseling and information on military discharges, on AWOL, on UA, on the GI rights, 877-447-4487, or the website is girightshotline.org. But please, I'm begging you, don't just follow an illegal order. Make sure you understand the options that you have in front of you. And by the way, let's not forget how brazen this is. Even the LAPD, not exactly a bastion of progressive law enforcement, admitted in writing in a press release that the protesters were peaceful and that ICE provoked the confrontation. Any violence was ICE provoking. The LAPD writes that today demonstrations across the city of Los Angeles remain peaceful, and we commend all those who exercise their First Amendment right responsibly. The LAPD appreciates the cooperation of organizations, of participants, and community partners who helped ensure public safety throughout the day. While today's events concluded without incident, the LAPD remains fully prepared to respond swiftly and appropriately, etc., blah, 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 blah. But the main point was that they are thanking the entire LA community for remaining peaceful. So what we're witnessing is not the military quelling violence, it's the military being used as a tool of political repression. And while this spectacle unfolds on our screens, the media coverage keeps calling it clashes and unrest and civil unrest. It's nonsense. And Trump is continuing with his sleight of hand distractions. And what is he distracting from? Well, I don't know. How about the fact that he's pushing a healthcare bill that will strip 11 million people from coverage? A policy that, according to Yale research, will result in 51,000 preventable deaths annually. A tax scheme that will funnel more billions into the pockets of billionaires and create a greater wealth divide than already exists. A claim from Elon Musk that Trump is in the Epstein files, which Trump still won't release. This complicity in our genocide in Gaza as he continues to arm Netanyahu to commit genocide and war crimes. I talked earlier about the outbreak of measles and salmonella and whooping cough caused by deregulated healthcare and food. A coordinated campaign to build a dystopian so-called Christian nationalist regime. This is the present moment in the United States, and this is what Trump is trying to distract from. So let me say it plainly. Fascism isn't coming, it's here. It isn't on the way, it's arrived. It's wearing the mask of national security, the armor of law and order, the flag of patriotism, all wrapped in a cross, but at its core, it is a rotting, gaslighting, anti-democratic force that seeks to crush dissent, criminalize compassion, and erase the basic constitutional protections that define our republic. So what do? Well, one, we elect people like Dr. Babur Lateef. So go to iwillvote.com and vote for Dr. Babur Lateef. Find out your local polling location. Election day is coming up on June 17th. But also, basic stuff. Stock up on food and non-perishable items in case you can't leave the house for a week or two. Immigrants, ensure your loved ones know where you are at all times. And if you're undocumented, ensure your immigration attorney knows where you are at all times. Everyone, call your members of Congress every day if you have to. Demand they do something to stand up to Trump. Veterans, join organizations like Common Defense. I'm a board member. We are working relentlessly and nationally to uphold justice and peace in the United States and abroad. Everyone, invest in immigration rights organizations and independent media and activists who aren't bought and sold by corporate cash. If you're listening on Substack, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And military service members, visit the GI Rights hotline or call 1-877-447-4487 and make sure you know what your rights are. And then vote, vote, vote. My friends, this is why I do what I do. I'm proudly an American. I'm proudly an American Muslim. I'm proudly an immigrant. I'm proudly a U.S. citizen. And I'm proudly a human rights lawyer. I will not sit quietly as my nation of citizenship descends into fascism. And I need you guys to continue to have that urgency, to get out there, to march, to protest peacefully, to exercise your First Amendment rights, and let those in power know that this fascism will not stand. Whew! What a show this week. All right, my friends, if you believe in this, please hit that subscribe button. Make sure you are engaged. Elevate this work to help us break through the noise and make sure that we are building a sense of justice together. We do have the power together, but we need to act because we are running out of time. And I don't say that as hyperbole, I say that as reality. Thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to follow us on social media at Qasim Rashid across all platforms. You have my commitment to continue to advance the show that builds on compassion, that builds on justice, that builds on accountability for those in power. Thank you for getting us to our first 100,000 downloads. Can't wait to get us to our next 100,000 and hopefully our first million soon enough. Got a great show lined up for next week. Be sure to tune in, same time, same place, for new shows at 10 a.m. Eastern, on Sunday on Sirius XM, and obviously on Monday on Substack, on Sirius on channel 126, on Substack at QasimRashid.com. My friends, be fierce, lead with compassion and justice, and continue speaking truth to power. Until next week, peace.